A 26-year-old woman armed with a handgun opened fire at a Maryland warehouse, killing 3 people and wounding 3 others before taking her own life. The shooting occurred in Urbandine, about 34 miles northeast of Baltimore. The shooting occurred a day after a man had shot and wounded 4 people, including a police officer, at a Pennsylvania court building before he was killed by police. The Archbishop of New York, Cardinal Timothy Dolan, has appointed retired federal judge Barbara Jones to review how the New York Church handles accusations of abuse by clergy. Dolan has introduced Jones as the new special counsel and independent reviewer. During a news conference in New York, Jones not only has promised to review how the church handles accusations of abuse, she has also promised to review safety programs aimed at preventing the sexual abuse of minors. A group of about 40 protesters, most of them women, clogged the lobby of Grassley Senate office to protest against President Donald Trump's U.S. Supreme Court nominee, Brett Kavanaugh. Many wore buttons with the words, "I believe Dr. Christine Blasey Ford." Dr. Christine Blasey Ford has accused Kavanaugh sexually assaulted her in 1982 when both were high school students in Maryland, an allegation Kavanaugh has called completely false. European Union leaders meeting in Salzburg have agreed to a special summit in November to finalize Brexit deal with Britain. Brussels originally said it wanted an agreement on Britain's withdrawal from the European Union by a former EU summit in October. But after months of deadlock in the talks, EU President Donald Tusk had proposed an extraordinary summit in mid-November to clinch the deal. French President Emmanuel Macron had said that the Brexit plan proposed by British Prime Minister Theresa May was unacceptable in its current form and that he expected new proposals from Britain in October. The statement comes after British Prime Minister Theresa May said that there had been no counter-proposal from the European Union for a Brexit deal that would be acceptable to Britain and that her Chequers proposal for trade with the EU, intended to resolve arguments on the border of Northern Ireland, were the only way forward. Thousands of people, activists of the migration and refugee networks, protested against the European Union summit in Salzburg, Austria. The protest was held during the EU summit in the city at which migration dominated the agenda. After Brexit, the organizers said that they want to draw the focus on the situation in the central Mediterranean, where thousands of refugees and migrants risk their lives and sail towards Italy and Europe. Twelve people have been killed and dozens have been missing after a landslide unleashed by monsoon rain struck in the central Philippines. The tragedy comes just days after 2018's most powerful storm, Typhoon Mangkhut, pounded the nation's north with heavy winds and rain, sparking a separate landslide that left dozens dead. Emergency workers and locals with shovels rushed to search for survivors of the new disaster, which happened in a village on the popular tourist island of Cebu. Thailand is battling one of its largest dengue fever epidemics, with more than 50,000 people being infected by the tropical disease this year. The dengue fever has claimed 69 lives in Thailand since the beginning of 2018. Latest figures released by the country's health department states that more than 50,000 cases have cropped up so far, making it one of the largest epidemics to have hit the country. Mexico's President-elect Andrés Manuel López Obrador has vowed to sell the presidential jet and fly commercial after taking power. Was stuck on the tarmac for several hours after bad weather closed the capital's airport. Bad weather in Mexico City, which is its rainy season, temporarily closed the airport, creating chaos and delay for hundreds of passengers. A Turkish court ordered the release of a jail opposition lawmaker who had been sentenced to more than 5 years for disclosing government secrets. More than 50,000 people have been detained and more than 150,000 have been sacked or suspended from their jobs since the abortive coup in July 2016. Around 150 media outlets have also been shut down, while 160 journalists have been jailed. U.S. Defense Secretary Jim Mattis has said that the downing of a Russian plane off Syrian coast would complicate the situation for several players, but not for the United States. Now, his comments come after Russian President Vladimir Putin said the downing of the plane was the result of a series of tragic circumstances. Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has expressed his sorrow to Russian President Vladimir Putin after 15 crew members were killed due to the crash. He added that Israel's Air Force commander was sent to Moscow to preserve the cooperation between the two countries. UK Foreign Secretary Jeremy Hunt met with members of the Rohingya community on the final day of his trip to Myanmar. During his two-day trip, Hunt travelled to northern Rakhine State and spoke to the Rohingya community about their lives and how they have been affected by the Rohingya crisis. Western criticism has mounted of Suu Kyi's failure to speak about against military treatment of the Rohingyas. Britain's Foreign Secretary Jeremy Hunt said that he had raised the case of the two jailed Reuters journalists with Myanmar's civilian leader Aung San Suu Kyi. Reporters were alone and Kho So-woo were arrested last December while investigating a massacre in Rakhine, were sentenced to 7 years in prison after being convicted this month under the Colonial Era Official Secrets Act. It was a dream come true for South Korean President Moon Jae-in, who visited Mount Paektu on the final day of the three-day Inter-Korean Summit. Both Korean leaders and their wives visited the mountain on the Chinese border together. Moon is known for his love of mountain climbing. Preparations are underway in Lithuania, Latvia and Estonia for the arrival of Pope Francis as he starts a tour of the Baltic countries, which starts tomorrow. The Pope will pay a visit to sites remembering the atrocities, such as laying wreath to a monument in Riga, which was focus of its anti-Soviet movement, and praying in former Jewish ghetto in Vilnius, liquidated 75 years ago. Britain's Duchess of Sussex, Meghan Markle, was joined by her mother and husband Prince Harry for the launch of a charity recipe book to help a community cooking project set up in the wake of London's Grenfell Tower fire disaster. The cookbook will raise funds for the Hub Community Project, created last summer by survivors of the blaze that killed 71 people after engulfing the 24-story social housing block in West London. Saudi King Salman hosted Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan on his maiden foreign visit since coming to power. Imran Khan also met Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman and Energy Minister Khalid Al-Falih as he concluded his two-day visit amid speculations that he would seek economic assistance from the oil-rich ally. Former cricket star faces challenges including a faltering economy, militant extremism, water shortages and a rapidly growing population. More than 24 passengers on a flight operated by India's biggest full-service carrier, Jet Airways, were treated for minor injuries after the plane lost cabin pressure and was forced to turn back. Shortly after takeoff from the financial capital of Mumbai, the flight crew forgot to select a switch to maintain cabin pressure. 30 of the 166 passengers on board were treated for minor injuries, including headaches and bleeding from the nose or ears. The Civil Aviation Ministry has taken note of the incident and has ordered the Directorate General of Civil Aviation to conduct an inquiry and fix accountability. Former President of Afghanistan Hamid Karzai attended a fair organized for farmers in India's northern Ludhiana city. A 3-day fair held in Punjab's Agricultural University campus aims to educate farmers about new farming techniques, equipments and address issues concerning the farmers. Farmers along with other people visited the fair to gain knowledge and improve farming methods. Lebanese people took part in the Ashura festivities in the southern suburb of Beirut, a predominantly Shia district, during which Hezbollah Secretary General Hassan Nasrallah delivered a speech to his supporters. Pilgrims wore black and beat their backs with steel chains to express their grief over the killing of Imam Hussein and his followers. Thousands of people held a rally in Yemen's capital Sana'a to mark the day Houthi rebels marched in and took power. Back in 2014, the rebels were able to take control of government buildings with the help of forces loyal to former President Ali Abdullah Saleh. The Houthis went on to form the National Salvation Government through the ousted administration of President Abdel Rabo Mansour Hadi. Last-minute preparations are underway in Munich days before the annual Oktoberfest opens its doors to millions of fun-loving beer drinkers from around the world. The 185th annual festival is a celebration where millions of liters of brew are consumed each year over a 2-week period by locals and tourists alike. British and French military and civil officials gathered to celebrate the Royal Air Force centenary in Saint Omer in October 1914. The northern French village of Saint Omer, close to the English Channel, saw the birth of the British military flying corps. The historical episode created tight links between the Royal Air Force and the French city of Saint Omer. A superbike outpaced a fighter jet, a business aircraft, an electric car and 3 sports cars in a 2-day test race at Istanbul's newest airport as part of Turkey's first aerospace and technology festival, dubbed Technofest. The superbike won the race, outpacing his rivals by 0.04 seconds. The airport is due to open next month, but has faced plenty of criticism and protest over work conditions, which unions have compared to a concentration camp. Philippe Gillette shares his house on the banks of the river Loire in France with 400 reptiles after a childhood spent in the Central African Republic. Herpetological Gillette has vowed to protect nature and educate a public fearful of animals he says are not well understood. 20 volunteers work for his association, which organizes 3 to 4 road shows a year to shopping centers around France to raise awareness. It was the tiniest of Chile's soldiers and police officers that stole the show at Chile's annual military parade. A group of 9 golden retriever puppies were paraded alongside their fully grown human counterparts. The puppies marched along with the other dogs from the canine unit and members of Chile's armed forces, as well as soldiers from several countries who were invited to march in the annual parade.
Podemos ver en este momento
Nuestra escuela se inmortaliza en bronce.
puntos, competencias profesionales y valores.
Ecuador, Guatemala, Haití, Honduras. Desfila frente a las autoridades un escuadrón